one man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in HEX on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call HEX, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Creed of Crypto live stream. How are you doing? I am Broke Boi Crypto, and I have here with me, as always, my friend and co-host Crypto Ewok. Welcome into the chat. We see Footsteps is here. We got DGen Moonboy, and I'm sure we'll have some more pouring in as well. We got a lot to talk about tonight. There's been a lot of developments in the DeFi world of PulseChain over the last week and the greater crypto world. Some major topics, and just like we have on the thumbnail tonight, why does this bull market not feel like a bull market? Maybe it's just if you're invested in PulseChain. Maybe it's other people as well. But right now, a lot of salty tears, as we have in the thumbnail, over the last few weeks for sure. We have Bitcoin pulling back and ETH pulling back. So really, a lot of things are pulling back right now, and people are pulling their hair out. But hey, it's still April of 2024. So we're going to get into all that and a whole lot more. But Ewok, how are you feeling this evening about the markets and life in general?
Feeling pretty good. I mean, it's clear that some people just aren't going to make it, man. When you look around and you see what's going on, and lots of capitulation and lots of people freaking out and saying the same thing that the thumbnail says. Why does it suck so bad? What's going on? Why aren't we moving anywhere? And, it's all part of the fun, man. Part of the mental game that is a bull bear cycle, and you got to get through it. We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. People just hang in there, and we'll be fine.
I think part of what it is too is just like, especially with crypto, like we're all here looking at this stuff. I've said this before, covering it every single day, talking about it every single day. We do this show once a week and then release clips over the course of the week. But there's so many people out there covering, tweeting, doing all these things about this market all the time. And as we know, there are big time drawbacks, or not drawbacks, but downs in the market.
Yeah.
Dips, whatever you want to say, that, are not as fun to report on. And, people get really emotional because the charts are, they go a lot of different directions very quickly. So the one good thing is, to keep looking at the calendar and remember, like, we're in 2024 now. We're entering the second quarter of it. We're nearing the Bitcoin halving. We're starting to maybe see that pullback going into the halving. So I guess we'll just go there now. When I wrote the notes just the other day, BTC was still hanging around 70K, but we've really seen it pull back here today, sitting at about 65.5K. ETH has now gone back below 3,300. And we're going to talk a little about ETH tonight because a lot of people on Twitter and stuff like that lately, I think basically Ethereum and most of the altcoin space, minus a handful of crazy meme coins, apparently, have just been kind of taking a beating in comparison to Bitcoin so far. Because, we've said this before. I mean, nobody expected Bitcoin to already hit a new all-time high pre-halving and, shouting of the left translated cycle idea and things like that. But the ETH ratio just hasn't closed in enough yet. And it's got people literally, I don't even know how this is real, but literally people calling for the death of Ethereum. And, the Bitcoin finally proves king. I mean, we know that that's utter insanity, but it is happening nonetheless. And ETH, has been a little bit of a laggard compared to Bitcoin here. But we talked about this before too. Ethereum was also super strong in the bear market. As we headed into the bear market, man, I can't believe it was this far back, but I think September of 2021 is when they started making some of the upgrades. Well, I don't even remember what that one was at this point. Sharding, farting, harding. I don't know what it was. Something happened that month. Or maybe it was the move to proof of stake. I don't remember what it was. But we saw it hold up really well. So now we're seeing ETH not do as well. So overall, what do you kind of make of this pullback we're seeing here? And maybe, again, more importantly for us, Ethereum and most of the market really at this point, Ethereum catching up to Bitcoin, can and will that happen soon?
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned it yourself. It's been strong. So it really never got the major pullback. I think what did it get down to? 8 or 900 on
Yeah,
Ethereum.
like
So
850.
I
Yeah.
mean, it stayed extremely strong. Many people predicted it to come down to 4 or 500,
Mhm.
and it just never got there. It did, half of that or twice that anyway was the low. So because of all the upgrades, because of the proof of stake, and that's what it was. I think when what you're
Yeah.
talking about was the move to Ethereum 2 when it actually launched, it stayed really strong. And now, you know, because Bitcoin is pulling back and because they're so tied together, um, that's what we're seeing. It's just a lull in the markets before the halving happens, like it does every single cycle. People kind of pull back, they wait because they know or have been here before. So there's just not a whole lot of action. There's a lot of talk, about the ETF as well. There's a lot of bullish things to come, but I when things are down, usually we say that's the time to buy, and it really technically should be. We get catching some of these dips. Now is the time if you haven't yet. Obviously, we've been preaching it for months and months on end is to buy some of these prices, but if you haven't started DCA on some of these red candles, I mean, this is probably as good as it's going to get for a while. Um, you know,
Mhm.
Probably another couple weeks, and happens. Once that happens, it usually takes off. Things start to run. We see the Bitcoin and Ethereum prices go up, and then after a while, a lot of that value gets drawn out of that and then into your altcoins, and that's what we actually call the altcoin season. And some of these had a pre-run up and things like that, but the majority of the markets will follow suit with Bitcoin as it runs up. Ethereum will too. You'll even see Litecoin and Doge and all these other ones start to creep up as well because the rising tide lifts all boats. So
Mhm.
happen. It's part of the cycle. It's in that. I think we're in the what is it? Um, I forget what part of the cycle. The name of the cycle. You know,
Um,
but
I
I
guess
think
it.
we're in that bottom level area is what I was getting at.
Yeah, I guess it depends on maybe which asset you're looking at. Because I mean, that's kind of a sentiment thing, and I think it's different with the different. Like, if you would look at the Wall Street cheat sheet for Bitcoin right now versus ETH or PulseChain, I think you're getting different sentiments. Probably, I don't think the Bitcoin sentiment compared to like the PulseChain sentiment would be exactly the same thing right now. But yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. It's definitely at the lower point at the moment.
Yeah, I think
So
we're in the depression phase is
yeah, I do
what it
too.
what it really is. We've already passed the anger. Now people are just depressed. And, again, once the halving happens, things will start to look up and we'll be in better shape.
Yeah, I think so too. Speaking of Pulse Chain, if we want to turn the page over to that ecosystem, so a viewer just before we went on the air actually reminded me in a comment on one of our other videos. You and I had a gentleman's wager on last week's program about the Pulse Chain price, and I said just put you on the spot and said, "Hey, do you think Pulse goes below sack rate ever again?" You kind of hemmed and hawed, but ultimately said you think that it would. I steadfastly said that it would not go below sack rate again. So you have won said wager. So congratulations just for everybody for the prices being down right now. You have Ewok to blame because I didn't, that wasn't something that I programmed in. But yeah, we do sit here a little bit below sack rate. Since Sunday, we really started to see some of these prices come down. We sit with Pulse at just below sack rate, about the 4096 right now. Pulse X is now the whole way down to 62% below the sack rate, and that that ratio, which maybe we can talk about for a moment between Pulse and PulseX, has crept back up into the 2.5-ish range, which frankly is where it was not even a month ago, I think.
Sure.
So not that big of a move. But incentive token under $5, about $4.75 now. Hex at just under a penny. And eHEX, I don't know if I should report on this or if I'm going to get in trouble, but it's at 0.2 of a penny right now. So, yeah, things are down. And, we saw some wallets that may not be connected to a sacrifice wallet making some moves when PulseChain kind of ever got down towards that SAC rate. But we've seen it come down below there right now. So if you want to take a look at the Pulse chart Ewok, and maybe we just kind of see what we're seeing here. I mean, we had that beautiful like stair step thing going for a while. Things just were very, very bullish for really about a couple of months, just the way things were looking there. And now we've come down into a level, I mean, where there is historical support, more so from back, last summer after launch, probably for a bit. But yeah, what do you make of this? And I still think in this range, like we're gearing up here. I mean, I don't think we go very much lower than this. I mean, again, I didn't even think we would go below SAC rate. So what do you make of where we're at right now?
Well, I drew this line on here when I was predicting where I thought it could possibly go. And it was right about, 8,500 or, the 4085. And it got close. And I think it technically still could bounce down a little bit further. I think what's happening is when these bigger wallets step in and there's buy pressure, there's a couple things that happen, right? They're being so heavily reported on that everybody's saying, "Oh, here comes this wallet is buying." It's a big signal to the traders who don't really follow the wallet, or they're not doing their own blockchain analysis or anything like that. It's a signal. They're saying, "Oh, let's let it buy it up, and we'll just sell it right off, and we'll buy it back at a little bit lower." And I think that's what you're seeing on a lot of these moves. Now, I think that entity will soon get tired of that and just say, "Screw it! I'm waiting until you guys shake it all out before I start, interfering or doing anything more." So I think that's what's causing it a little bit. However, I do think that some of these levels here people will start to step in. I mean, that's what it's got to take. You can only rely on green candles so much to market with. And when you have green candles and they immediately get sold down, it's just not good marketing, right? Mm-hmm. So you either have to let it play out or dump a pile of cash into it to just run right past it. And then again, you still have those people involved that are traders. And, we've fought for a long time to tell people that trading is not the right way to do this. It should be about long-term holds, delayed gratification, dollar cost average in, and let the cycle play out. And, when you onboard people, you tell them the same thing. But, when you get a brand new blockchain, you do attract a lot of that trader mentality. A lot of people playing the games in and out of coins, thinking this one's better than this one, so we'll sell positions, and they're just all over the place. So it does take a while to settle and even out and let the money get distributed correctly before you can really have a floor and really start to run. But as time goes on, as more people lose on trades, the less there are, because they start getting burned and realize that that's not the right game to play. Or they take a look at their wallet size and be like, "Man, originally I had a half a billion coins and I'm down to like 400 million, 300 million because I've been in and out of all this stuff trying to game the system, and it's not working so well for me."
You brought up a great point that I hadn't thought of as much, and I know people have been tweeting about it a bit. And full disclosure, I mean, you and I both have been trying as much as we can to stay off of Twitter the last couple of weeks because it's just been horrible. But I think some of these people that do report on the big moves, and I know that Martin account is one of them, and then there's like I don't want to call them bot accounts, but like ones that are just anonymous, like whatever PulseChain moves and stuff like that. You do bring up a good point about the front running thing. You know, it reminds me, as somebody who used to be more interested in the sports betting world, of like there's a couple big time like betting syndicates out there that were essentially like, I think they call them like screen scrapers, basically, where it's like you would just be looking at all of the odds boards and you have like 30 different sports books up there. And like you can't do this as much anymore. But back in the day, you could start to see moves happening and then just bam, like all these different accounts you have start front running moves at different books that had sports books that hadn't moved yet. And while the edges there, were much smaller, I think, than what there is here. You know, I mean, you're literally getting signal like, oh, hey, a $500,000 or $1 million buy might be coming in a few minutes, and you can make moves. I mean, that's you make a great point. And while I don't think that that doesn't matter as much, I think when everything's going up, like when the whole market's kind of pushing up, I don't know that that will be as impactful. But certainly right now, where we're kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. You're seeing that. I think you're definitely seeing that. So I've seen people saying like, you know, maybe I should start reporting on it, or we should start reporting on it, or whatever. I think I personally think I would appreciate that, but it's a Pandora's box that's been opened. I mean, it's like trying to say now, like, you know what? No more sandwiches. We're just going to ban sandwiches. The idea is out there. We all, you know, people eat sandwiches. So I don't know. What do you make of that? I mean, maybe for the accounts like that Martin account, and I'm missing other people, but like people who individually are doing it themselves just to look at on-chain data. But yeah, what do you make of that? I mean, I don't think that's something you can just like put away now, you know?
Well, I think they can take advantage of it, though. I think what needs to happen is if they really want to offer that service, maybe privatize it. You know what I mean? And make people pay for it. Lazy people are not going to pay for it. Um, you know, some of the traders might, but it's going to eliminate probably half of the people that are trying to front run it. You know, it's the lazy ones that aren't really doing any kind of research at all. And I remember, you know, I always appreciated Silver, the antidote. His account, his was private, and he would put hours and hours and hours of work into studying a lot of different wallets and movements and game theories and things like that behind a lot of what was happening. But that was when it was just hex, right? So I mean, there was it was narrowed down a little bit more. Now that it's an entire ecosystem, it's a little bit harder for people to understand who's who and who the players are. But I think it would be a good opportunity for people like that to, if you want to create a subscription and broadcast it there, an idea for them. That way it's not general public. And you know, I hate the thought of people just doing it for the clicks and the likes and things like that.
Right.
It doesn't serve that kind of purpose. It creates the trader mentality that we've, you know, worked pretty hard to get away from that, and explain to people that, you know, time in the market is much better than trying to time the market. And now that's just gone by the wayside, and people are back to being degens. So
yeah. Yeah, I think closing it would be something that those individuals would probably even benefit more from too. I mean, like if you could just get paid directly, why not? You know, by some people. So I don't know. It's not one of those things you could just snap your fingers and make go away, but it'll be interesting to monitor for sure. And another point that I had actually about like this recent sell-off. So you know, you could say like whatever you can make look at the chart and then, you know, somebody will tell you the news. I understand that. But on Sunday, I think it was, is when we saw some more moves from the BankX folks. So we saw that they bridged over, I believe it was all of their eHEX. They bridged to PulseChain. So, you know, makes sense to do so. Obviously, well, I don't know if they would have really been dealing with fees or care about fees, honestly. But so they pulled their liquidity for the whole bag. I think it's how much is it?
740 million hex.
Yeah. So they bridged it all to PulseChain. I found this very comical. But speaking of some of the bot accounts that tweet out moves, that Hex Alerts account literally said BankX sent 200 million eHEX to bridge, eHEX going to zero. Like
Yeah, I
they
saw that.
tweeted that themselves.
I saw that.
And then Quo tweeted it and said it was the whole 700 million. Now, where was I going with this? So, yeah, BankX moves it all over. They had been set to trade it between 1.5 and 3 cents or something like that. Obviously, I don't know when those numbers are coming back. Now that we're at 0.2 of a penny. But they bridged all over to Pulse on Sunday. Originally, I was going to ask what you think is going on here, but it does look like they are. They do have a plan for it. So they moved it onto the 9mm exchange, which I don't know if you've ever used yet, Ewok, but
I have played around with it, not as not as much as I would like to. I do know there's some opportunity on there for some liquidity providing, but yeah, so they moved their entire stack over to there. I think they created a range of 0.007 up to double that, which is 1.4 cents, I believe. But what they failed to do was provide any liquidity in the full range for the token. And when they put that liquidity at that spot, everybody else pooled their entire liquidity. So there is literally no other liquidity in there except for them. Excuse me. And when you do that, it really screws everything up because they have a range set. There's really nothing to buy in between where it's at now and 0.007. So a couple community members I saw put in like just a few $100s of liquidity just so that it didn't screw everything up, because it can really mess things up if you don't have a full range of liquidity. It messes with the ratios and everything like that gets all messed up, and then it's very hard to correct. So luckily we had some people step in, provide liquidity for the full range. I realized it was only a couple $100, so it may get to that point a little bit quicker. But yet again, people just don't want to buy. They don't want to sell, they don't want to buy into that and be their exit liquidity. So I don't know. I wish they just would have kind of dumped it and taken it all the way down and been gone. But, it doesn't seem to be that that's what they want to do. They want to just wait it out. We'll see how patient they are, right? That's going to be the key. How patient are they?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a virtue for them right now, because I mean, they were already waiting long enough. It's like a year basically, and then we see some of the action that's happened with eHEX over the last couple of weeks, and it's like all those prices that they were hoping for that they didn't think would be all that far off. None of us did until a certain day. Now they look so far in the rearview mirror that there may not be a way that we can get there. So,
well, they could have had $8 million at one point. I think somebody offered $8 million to buy them out, OTC, and they said no. They didn't want to entertain that offer. So now they're probably really wishing that they would have.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting to at least see them move it over to there. We'll have to see what does come of it, but obviously a lot of people have been scared off of eHEX for a while now. Because Richard Hart's tweets, but also the market was already choosing the other direction as well. So we've talked about like Richard Hart tweeting about it. I mean, I've never necessarily felt that it was the best idea to even he didn't do anything. All he did was relay what the market was saying, and I agree with that and I understand that. But still, people are stupid though, and they read that and they kind of read something else into it, and sell off when they probably shouldn't have. But that
there could have been something else at play there too, regarding a certain law case that is happening right now. There could have been something along those lines too to detract. I think we'll talk about that later, aren't we? Yeah.
Why don't we talk about it? I mean, no, it's a good transition, honestly, because like I have so many things here and we're jumping around to whatever makes sense to go to. So real quick, if you guys are here and enjoying the stream so far, do us a favor, hit the like. We appreciate it. We do this every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Great point brought up by you, Ewok. Yeah. So we had some updates from Richard Hart's attorneys as they look to get rid of these yucky people within the SEC after they came basically for a monetary shakedown of Richard Hart. Hopefully Gary Gensler will be gone soon and we can get past this. And I don't think people are even really worried about the SEC anymore. And that's a bigger conversation I want to have with you in a minute about a poll that Toby Wan Hexobi posted the other day. But first, we had updates from Richard Hart's attorneys since the motion to dismiss from their end is due here in 6 days on April the 8th. And there was a discovery plan that on the original calendar was due on April the 5th here. What RH's attorneys are trying to do is basically put a stay on that and postpone it, because once they show everything that they're going to show in the motion to dismiss, it wouldn't make sense to have a discovery plan, because there's too many issues about the faulty SEC complaint lawsuit that will be debunked, like jurisdiction, among many other things. So yeah, Nuclear Herbs had a really good tweet on it. I think, I'll go pull it up here real quick. I was going to say, I think I pretty much covered what it is there. Let me just see what he said real quick. Yeah. So he said that RH's attorneys are asking to delay the filing for the discovery plan. That's what we said. This isn't entirely surprising, because until the motion to dismiss gets decided, you really don't know all of the issues you'll need discovery on. So we said that too. RH's attorneys think that his personal jurisdiction argument has some real teeth, and Nuclear Herbs said before in his PulseChain law school post about this issue. And if RH wins on this one single issue, the case is gone. Again, they feel that there's no need to conduct discovery if they win on that one issue, and they're right. They note that the absolute bizarreness of the SEC having named software as defendants in a lawsuit raises issues that need to be resolved before any discovery should be done. That's another good point, too, that they were listed PulseX, HEX as defendants, basically. And then finally, he says, on the flip side, when the court balances the interests of the parties, they're claiming that the SEC isn't being prejudiced at all, which is both mostly true and very important to a court's decision. He says, I'd put money on the SEC filing something claiming the sky will fall if the court grants this stay. It won't be true, but it's not like the SEC's filing true things lately anyway. So he's totally right. And that does, I should have sent that to you. That brings me.
That's okay, because that brings me to this other one, but go ahead and finish your thought there.
I was just going to say, with his last thought there about, which part was I talking about? Filing claim. About the SEC filing something saying the sky will fall if they grant this stay. We're going to get there, because a lot of people seem to think that this is going to be easy peasy and just like wipe our hands of this and the motion to dismiss gets granted and we move on. That'd be wonderful. And I do definitely think that RH's attorneys are focusing on the absolute right things. I think the jurisdiction thing is preposterous. Like, oh, one of the devs or somebody that worked on Uniswap is based in New York, and at least one HEX investor was in the Southern District of New York. It's like, all right, so let's have it in Omaha. Let's have it in Sarasota. Let's have it, name Boulder, Colorado, wherever you want to go. I'm sure they're all there too. There's that. And then the other issue, naming the decentralized blockchain and DEX as defendants themselves. I mean, they are real things. These aren't, this is part of what we said about this complaint from the SEC is throwing a lot of shit at the wall to see what sticks. That's the shit right there. So if you wanted to, I didn't see what that tweet said, but go ahead with what you had up there too.
Well, no, because later on he says, pay particular attention to this sentence. Richard Hart's attorneys are going to make the SEC prove that they've properly alleged all of the elements of personal jurisdiction with respect to HEX, Pulse, and PulseX individually. They're not going to let the SEC claim that properly alleging jurisdiction with respect to one token gets them jurisdiction over everything, which he says is a very solid tactic and a good move in his opinion. I don't think the SEC thought this through when they drafted their complaint, because they were pretty sloppy about how they alleged jurisdiction. And so basically what he's saying is, even though that jurisdiction may be true for HEX, they can't just ball it into one thing and treat it all the same, because PulseChain and PulseX have absolutely nothing to do with Uniswap. And, therefore, at least some of those claims should be dismissed. So, if you can narrow some things down and say, all right, you're claiming this, when really you have no right to claim this, this, and this.
Mhm.
You only have this now. When your argument gets narrowed down to just one thing, it's so much easier to fight than just having all these different things come in. So if we can at least get those couple things dismissed, it would be so helpful to the attorneys that are making this case.
Yeah, and it also leads me to this question because, on the Uniswap thing, 3 of the tokens, and, we've mentioned before, incentive isn't even included in this. So, 3 of the 4 tokens, like you said, have nothing to do with Uniswap. Could this also be, and I'm not trying to change the subject, it just happens to go with this, but with some of the recent tweeting of Richard Hart, and it's me, like I said a few minutes ago, feeling like it was ill-advised, could part of it be because of what you just said, that the original OG Hex Classic, which I haven't really heard anybody saying at all lately, that is the only one that's really tied to Uniswap ever, even though it's still an incredibly weak argument
Yep.
for jurisdiction. That is the only one, based on, I think, what his attorneys could argue, that they could have any even remote puny little piddly claim about.
Right. I
Do
mean,
you
there
think that's
is
partially why he
wrapped
did it?
false. I do. I
Mhm,
really do think a lot of that, because if he can get that kind of, it- I don't even say down to zero, but very inactive, and people have moved away from it over to PulseChain, um, the argument kind of becomes, well, no one's using that, man. We
yeah.
created a new chain, and no one's even using that anymore. So, um, would it help? Well, I don't know. I don't know if they say yeah, but you can't say, well, I there was a robbery over here, but we moved towns. We're no longer there anymore. Well,
Mhm,
things still happen, whatever. So I don't know what kind of grounds that holds, but either way, like I said, if you can narrow it down to one thing, there are 4 items. Yes, incentive is not there, but there's Richard Hart, and then there's the 3 tokens. So, there are
mhm.
4 things that they're really going after. One of them is the misappropriation of funds as well, which again, if he's got receipts, that's pretty easy to prove, right? I mean, that's either you did it or you didn't do it, and here's my proof. So um, that seems pretty simple. This is, like I said, though, I think this is a big argument to where if you can tell them, well, you don't even have jurisdiction over this, so this shouldn't even be brought up in this case at all. Um, it's going to do a couple things, right? It's going, like I said, it's going to narrow it down for them, and it's also going to probably create some discredit of the SEC in the judge's eyes too, because it looks like they didn't do their homework at all, and just
Yeah.
threw a bunch of stuff together. So they don't like their time wasted either. And if you can make the judge feel like her time's being wasted because they just threw a bunch of arguments together or threw shit at the wall to see what would stick, they don't like that. So it could turn out to be in their favor to just even bring it up. So yeah, I think it's very smart tactic.
Yeah, I think so too. And you just said too, I mean, the SEC already has lost incredible credibility for quite
Right.
some time now. I mean, I think the judge, it's public information. If you're going to be taking on a case that has a, petitioner in it as big as the SEC, you obviously are going to be familiar with what's been going on between the SEC and all these crypto entities, and then you got this lawsuit running congruently with one that's already way further down the line with the SEC versus Coinbase right now, which we're going to get to some developments we saw there the other day. Yeah, I couldn't disagree more with Thomas, obviously, on this point. I know you were probably going to say the same thing. Um, I don't know how else to express this, and I know I'm saying this kind of like in a cursory manner, but I don't think anyone gives a shit about this lawsuit. Like the SEC, it just is not a threat. It's
Right.
just not, they're losing anybody that they attack in crypto. Everybody knows Gary Gensler is just I just don't understand how somebody could even think that at this point. Like we're in a
Right.
bull market now. I just don't consider it a threat. We'll have more to expand upon that in a moment with a poll that was run the other day. But yeah, what do you make of?
Well, I think there are people that are very leery to invest. However, there are a bunch of people like you said don't care. And when the prices of things go up, and people start rotating into certain things that are still technically a buy, or on sale, I guess would be a better way to put it. Um, the SEC thing isn't going to matter. Now, new investors, large money, on ramps, off ramps, Coinbases, those type of people care, only because of the legalities. But your normal crypto investors or people, they don't really care. And I do agree. I think it could hinder it a little bit, but I don't think we're going to skip a bull market. It may not be quite as strong as we want it to be, but we're still going to see some nice returns. And like I said, I don't think there will be a whole lot. And Thomas, look on the flip side. That is a bad scenario. But what if they do get it dismissed? What if it's dismissed by June or July, or even October for that matter?
Yeah.
You still have pretty much another year of upside. So I don't think, when you think of the bad things, you also got to think of the good things that could happen too. And remember, there's a powerhouse setup of attorneys that are behind us on this one. So yes, I do agree. I'm holding regardless too, no matter what happens. But always keep in mind both sides. And yes, they can drag things out in court, but hopefully we can get it settled a lot sooner and we don't even have to worry about it.
And things will definitely get dragged out. I mean, not only because of, like the SEC has literally nothing to lose. Like this, anybody can file a lawsuit against anybody. You know what I mean? So
and unlimited funds.
Exactly. And they're in a government entity that, hopefully somebody's going to break up these thugs at some point. But, they have nothing to lose. It's a monetary shakedown where they attack somebody else, in this case, Richard Hart, but they attack other people as well, to shake down technology that they couldn't have ever dreamed of created so they can just get a piece of the pie. That's what it is. So I don't think 3 or 4 years. I don't think it's going to take that long. And like you said, Ewok, I mean, we are I think we're in the best possible position with this scenario right now. Like, even think back to December, before Richard came out publicly and said, "Hey, we're fighting the SEC. Here's team of attorneys." They have 11 different attorneys, some of which have worked with the SEC. Keep in mind, I mean, these are extremely credible people that have won super notorious law firms. Be happy that you have all that information and know about that information, and that he has acknowledged it and is totally taking it on. You could still be in the dark about the whole scenario and, not know what's going on, so I think we're in the best possible way we could be with that. That said, something I want to say, because I think people are getting a little over eager sometimes. Here's the thing with these kind of things, there's always a middle ground. And that's usually, there's a middle ground that's like 60 to 80% in the middle. And that's usually what's going to happen. Then you have 20% out here. Oh, hey, this could take 3 or 4 years. We're going to miss the bull market. And then over here you have, this is going to get dismissed on April 8th. No, I say no to both of those scenarios. But let's juxtapose Thomas's point there with what we're seeing on Twitter. You and I were talking about this the other day. I think people need to stop with this. Hell, what if it gets dismissed this month? How many X's do we do? I think the chances of it getting dismissed this month are absolutely minuscule. Yes, the motion to dismiss will be due. It will be very interesting to read that. I'm excited to see that. We'll all kind of be, checking out the Nuclear Herbs Twitter to see what his thoughts are on it as well. But it'll be really interesting to see what it is they have planned. But a judge still has to sit with that. There still is a timetable. The SEC has, I think it's until July or something like that to respond to the motion. Right. So, I mean, these people that are getting giddy about that right now, just because the motion to dismiss is due, I would cool your jets a little bit. The SEC, like we already said, they have nothing to lose. They're going to postpone, draw it out as long as they can, and wait until they get a little payment and probably then walk away or something like
And,
that.
and don't forget, the amicus brief was brought up as well. We can talk
Mhm.
about that. They are mentioning that 43. They mentioned the number 43,000, I think, for a
Yep.
reason.
Yeah.
And I would love to see us get to 50 by the time it gets anywhere further. Just to say, well, it was 43, now it's 50,000. And there's another
Mhm.
one, I believe, that Coffee's group has started as well. So we'll
Yes.
have two amicus briefs in our back pocket, pretty much.
So I don't know if that one is Coffee's group necessarily. I know he tweeted about it, but it is from like an organization called I Can. I should have looked further into this, but yeah, it's basically it's a model set up where not that I'm not saying that pulsepetition.org won't be taken at all seriously. I think that it can and will be in some respects, but this other organization has, a lot of other things I think they've done under their belt that would lend
Okay.
itself to even more credibility, is I guess what it is. But
Yeah, I didn't look into who they were either, really, and I shouldn't have said Coffee's group. Coffee was the one that retweeted it and
yeah,
mentioned them. So yeah, I misspoke there. Sorry.
no, it's good. The last thing that I wanted to say on this issue is the other day. So just to, and actually, this is going to sound bearish. I actually think it's incredibly bullish, but that's just me. But the other day, Toby won Hexobi, which popular on Matty Allen's obviously stream, which he does tonight, usually like right now. He's on there quite frequently. Toby is, and he had a poll the other day where he said like, how many X's do you think Pulse will do if the case were dismissed? I don't know if he said like this month or when it is dismissed, or I think he may have meant like now on this timeline, which would have made sense for a poll question. And by far of the options that he gave, he had like no pump at all, will pump in the bull market, 2 to 5x immediately off of the news. I forget the third option. I'm guessing some like a little bit higher than that. And then he had a 10x. The majority of the votes went to a 10x in a pulse price pump if it were dismissed. I mean, I think that is ridiculous. I mean, I just can't even, and I'm not saying anything to do with like Pulse's recent performance or anything like that. You guys are giving the SEC too much credibility. Like what Thomas said a minute ago. No one gives a shit about this. Like I don't even see anybody talking about this. There's nobody, I don't see hardly anybody that's, afraid, and maybe that's the point. Maybe you can't see them or whatever, but nobody looks at this as if it's an issue, really. I don't see, I just think the thought of doing a 10x off of the case being dismissed is ludicrous. I could see something like a 2x, like right off the news, and then it, retracing, because I don't give any credibility to this lawsuit. I don't give any
Yeah.
credibility to the SEC. It's never had any bearing on what I thought about it. Sure, it makes the chart look different at different times, but I still think we'd be where we are. I don't think that it matters. So I know you called me out whenever you saw my response to the results on that tweet, but what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I said 2 to 5. That was my response, I believe, to the poll. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I think it would have an immediate effect. And, see it or not, there is definitely a chilling effect that has been created. But I think the people that have been here, the people that have been around long enough to know, realize what's going on and aren't really concerned about it. It's the it's the newbies. It's the people that we need the outside money to get in, that are still a little bit leery of it, because when they do any kind of research, they maybe one of the things that they find, and they don't know what's going on. They don't know there's a powerhouse team of lawyers. They don't know that Richard is kind of battling for all of crypto. They don't know uh, the backstory of Hex and how that came about. And um, there's just so many things. They don't know that he is a self-help author that's written books to help you quit smoking and quit gambling and, give better apologies and things like. There's a lot to it, right? That people just don't know. Um, so I think there's a lot of outside forces that would be affected, that would come in. But again, I don't think it would be a 10x right away. But I think it would. I think it would definitely catapult it a little bit faster than what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I think it would be a sell the news event. I mean, I wouldn't sell, obviously. I don't mean it like that, but I think we would see a uh, huge green candle right off of the news, but I think we would, slightly retrace it
Sure,
over a few days. I mean,
sure.
yeah, there'd be exuberance and stuff like that, but I I don't. Nobody really seems to think that it's much of a threat, so I just don't think there'll be much more.
Or you get
Katie,
one of those god candles that just blow everything out of the water and it never comes back. Because I know Hex had one of those at one point, one of those candles where it just took off and it, it never looked back. So
mhm.
it's a possibility. I don't give it, maybe 30% odds of that happening, but it's definitely a possibility.
I think if that were to happen, it would have to be a later time frame where that could be something that's going to happen anyway around that time, and maybe that news just could go with it, maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah, KD says I agree, 2 to 5x, and then an immediate dump to sack rate. I mean, I don't know about what price it'll be, but in terms of like immediate response, that's just my thoughts. But yeah, I just have never taken it seriously.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's move on from this because I don't really want to talk about it anymore. We'll finish this off with the SEC. So if you guys are enjoying the stream, do us a favor, hit the like button. We do this every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the SEC and their little tussle with Coinbase now. So the other day, Judge Faila, she rejected Coinbase's motion to dismiss, and a lot of people, in relation to the Richard Hart stuff, were like, "Oh, what is this going to mean for us? We're screwed," misinterpreting everything. But she was specifically citing the staking program that Coinbase offers on their centralized exchange. That is the reason that they engage in unregistered off and sale of securities. So it's fine that the motion to dismiss was not granted, but when has it ever been proven that any of these are securities that are on their site? That's the thing. So the SEC is alleging that they're selling unregistered securities. None of them have been proven. Not a token has been, proven to be a security, including Ripple, which, if anything was going to be a security, it would be Ripple. So, yeah. So a lot of people looked at this as bad news. I mean, I don't really think of it that way. That you're talking about dismissing an entire case, and she's falling back on the fact that they have a staking program on a centralized exchange, which I would never participate in, and I don't think people should. But anyway, none of these have actually been classified as securities, and the SEC does not provide any clarity or information on that. Coinbase, I think, still looks really good in this case, and this is only regarding the staking program. So
Right.
I think the judge kind of maybe tipped her hand a bit. I mean, totally did. And saying like the staking program's the problem. So
Right.
yeah, what do you make of that? Because people are like, oh no, this is bad news or whatever. I mean, for what we're interested in, what I think most real people or real crypto people are interested in, this isn't something I would never participate in anyway. So I don't look at this as incredibly bad news. It's just that the case is
Right.
going to go on. So what do you make of
Well,
that?
as far as clarity goes, it looks like Gary's here. We could probably ask him just to.
Ah, there he is. Okay. No problem, Gary.
No, yeah, no, I agree. I think that they've been going after staking. Gemini's staking program. They had who else was it? There was a couple other ones that they basically said, can't do that anymore. They had to remove them. Basically, what it is they're protecting their banksters who don't want to give somebody a better option of yield or interest. So, that's all it is. And they'll call it an unregistered security because you're staking and earning more. It just, I really think that's all it is. So, as far as that goes, they would have to do something. I don't know what the outcome would be if Coinbase just stops its staking and they call it a day. That could be as easy as that is, and then it's over. Or if they do get some sort of, I'm sure they'll get a fine, whatever it is, for participating in that. They still have it. I'm pretty sure you still leave USDC and Coinbase and earn.
Yeah, you're right.
You can. So I mean, it's still there. So it hasn't deterred them, at least, or had them take it down. But yeah, I mean, I think that's as simple as that. That's pretty much what it is. And again, for them, it's narrowing it down to what they have to fight now, right? If they're narrowed down to basically one thing, they're in kind of a similar boat that that Richard's in with his attorneys. If we can kind of narrow it down, and if you have one battle to fight rather than 3 or 4 different things and all these different coins and calling this or that, and it all goes back to clarity. It all goes back to them saying, are these really securities or not? And they won't decide. At some point, one of these judges is going to say, listen, if you can't determine whether it's a commodity or security, how can we say what they're doing is securities violation? One of them is going to have to, at some point. I just don't understand why it hasn't been done already. Why can't you classify this as one or the other, and then we can kind of move on?
Yeah, I agree. And, this is a good time actually to mention, because I had this on my show notes here for us for weeks that it just didn't really ever come up. But just so everybody knows, like some of the shady tricks of the SEC, and maybe I shouldn't accuse them of like they definitely are behind this, but for the life of me, I can't imagine anybody just having this as a hobby. But on any video that we've ever released of SEC's dealings, specifically with Coinbase, no other SEC video, we could be talking about anything to do with the SEC against any other entity or whatever. I've never seen this before, but every time we upload one, and this is going to be one of them right here that I'm talking on right now, so they can respond to my exact, you can reply to me in the comments right now. A bunch of bots in favor of the SEC start expanding in the comments about everything that Coinbase is doing wrong. Like it's programmed. They all comment at like the same time. I get a barrage of different messages on our videos, all from and it'll all be like Michael Thompson 6543, Chris Tragan, like it's just all formatted names, the exact same, and it's bots from the SEC. Like, Coinbase really needs to own up to what they're doing here. And it's just like, what in the hell? Because when I first started to see them, I was like, who in the hell has this opinion? This makes no sense at all. And then, they need to work on their algorithm a little bit, I guess, because they were all coming in at exactly the same time and they all had similar names. So I just started deleting them and then just putting, just basically putting at the top of our videos that like, hey, these are clearly bots if you want to check them down below. So hi guys, you're probably watching this one right now. Yeah, just interesting that they do employ tactics like that. Even we don't even have 4,000 subscribers. So I don't know like what links they go to try to run this propaganda machine, but I've always found that very interesting.
Yeah, so I'm sure they have bots, or there's different things out there that sift through looking for certain keywords, and then they go in and make comments. I'm pretty sure that's all it is, but yeah, we seem to trigger it on some of our videos, and I hope you just block them. I mean, that's what I would do, but
well, I can't block them from commenting necessarily, but I just delete their stuff. I've been reporting them basically, and then they just get removed. So anyway, so that's that. Yeah, their propaganda department is their propaganda department is better than their Twitter offset. Yeah, exactly. You're definitely right about that, Gunblazer. Yeah, I forgot about that one already.
Yeah.
Good stuff. There was so much. Okay, we have to cover this. Okay. So the reveal of the infamous Maria, the dev behind the ATROPA ecosystem, allegedly. Look, full disclosure, Ewok and I, as far as ATROPA, PDI, the different tokens that are within there, Teddy Bear is part of that ecosystem. Ewok has taken a much more cautious, skeptical eye of it all than I have. And we're also not like the premier people to talk to. We haven't like combed through the telegrams and the on-chain data to connect the dots and show you that, like that Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme with all the written stuff on the wall behind him. We haven't gone that deep. So don't come here for that. But it is highly intriguing to see and I forget his actual full name, but we'll just continue with Maria. It is a male. But the dev behind ATROPA, basically, this video leaked of this meeting in Zurich. There was a few different parts. I think it's all told there is like an hour of video, but I've seen so many snippets and like different pieces of it and things like that, with him being kind of interviewed by a few different people. It's more like a conversation, I'd say, than an interview. How I mean, there was, number one, just the fact that this person is like, doxxed now, apparently. And some of the things that he said, of intrigue was the quote, when, not if PDAI gets to $1, and indicated how that would be good for HEX and HEX parity on both chains, and how liquidity could work with PDAI getting to $1 and things like this. I didn't watch it, over and over with a fine-tooth comb. I didn't, but it was intriguing. I did passively watch it, and I wanted to get some of your thoughts on it, Ewok. I'm sure, PDAI is at all-time highs right now, I know. ATROPA, of course, is doing well too. But what do you make of this? Like, a lot of people are speculating, like, hey, this dude has to have talked to Richard. Like, he just, he seems, in the know anyway, or at least, maybe they've exchanged something. I don't know. I find it highly interesting, and I'm excited to see how it unfolds further.
Yeah.
But what did you make of what you have seen?
Well, the same way. I'm excited, interested. I guess I just want to see how it all plays out. But there's so much talk of all these different things. It really, you know what it reminds me of? I think I mentioned this to you before too, was the whole Zen thing. How we're going to create 15 different protocols in order to pump one.
Right.
And you just lose people. Like, obviously there are people in there that know every single protocol and every single this and that. And he's talking about launching a layer 2. And like, why the fuck do we need a layer 2? We haven't even built our layer 1. It just, it's so deep. It's fascinating. Obviously the guy's intelligent. You can tell by the way he speaks. Half of it you don't understand. The normal people don't understand it because
his look also. His look is clearly a guy who spends a lot of time
in front of a computer.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Let's be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm still sold on the whole. PDAI could get to $1. I just don't ever see it pegging. Crazier things have happened, whatever. I just haven't dove in that deep to it. And I don't really care to. We've got too many other things. Honestly, I'm more fascinated with the whole maker situation that Richard has, and that's one of the things. He put a bunch of money into the maker thing and got the, what is it, the stable ETH, or whatever, the S DAI, there's a whole lot of things that that I think he can control and that he can do. I do not see this external party having a whole lot to do with Richard. Richard's one of those guys where he wants it done. He wants to do it himself. And I just don't see it happening with all of this and them being in cahoots and working together. Now, do they have to work together? Absolutely not. Other people can do other things on their own without the help of him. It just, like I said, it seemed to be such a tangled web of this and that and 15 other things in order to get this to happen. And it almost felt like we were just building a house of cards. And if one of those potentially didn't work out, it could bring the whole thing down. Again, I'm at the point where, like I said, I don't dismiss PDAI getting to $1. I still dismiss it pegging to $1. Because way too many people got it for extremely cheap. And I think they'll sell. I think it's going to sell so drastically once it gets to that position. Yes, there will be a lot of people taking profits on the way up and more people buying in. But when you don't buy something for $1, you don't value it at $1 a lot of times. especially a so-called stable coin. And that's just my take on it. And it's going to take a lot of probably watching a lot of those videos and things like that to even understand halfway what they're planning on doing. So again, my fault for not digging deep into it, but that's my opinion as it stands right now. Like I said, I'm more fascinated with the SDI potential for a on-chain stable coin that could possibly work out for us, since we can't seem to get USDC or any of those guys to say, yeah, we'll support that chain too.
Right.
Hasn't happened yet. Doesn't mean it won't. I think with some credibility, with a full cycle behind it, there is that possibility as well. But when Richard talks about things that he's been cooking up and he's got some ideas and things to do, I think we'll soon see those, and I think that's probably one of them.
Yeah, I think so too. But I will say, Footstep says that you are of rational mind. I am an irresponsible. I'm flying off the handle because I think P is getting to $1. I don't know if it's going to peg to it, but I'm fully behind this. I am intrigued by the Maria and ATROPA stuff. I just want to. I'm not heavily invested in anything. I'm just kind of, watching it to see how things develop. I think it's very interesting. And
it's
hey,
definitely interesting. Sorry, it's interesting.
Well, the thing too, and this is more of like just if you're making a decision to invest in PDI, even the idea that like, okay, we know the target, like, the market that is speculating on will this peg or will this get to $1? The dollar is the number. With any other asset, you're just like, you'll throw out stuff like, oh, it's going to do 100x, or I hope it does this x. Like PDI, like it's right. It's $1. Like, what the target is, and I think that is appealing for people who invest because, like, okay, we're this amount of X's away from $1. And I think that's just a thing that people's minds gravitate to. You know what I mean? It's easy for them to make decisions to invest in that. So, I don't know. I hope more Maria stuff comes out. I thought it was very interesting. And maybe I'll watch it again because I think there was probably stuff I missed. So, good stuff indeed.
I only saw the very short interview. I think it was like 8 or 9 minutes long. It was a very chopped version of it. Like you said, I know there is one out there that is over an hour long. If I get the opportunity where I'm not really doing anything one day, I'll give it a watch and try to make sense of it. Like I said, there's a lot of talk of some of these things. I just don't feel that they're necessary at this point. Like I said, why do we need a layer 2? I don't think. But apparently it's got a place in the house of cards. So
yeah, I definitely understand that. Like I didn't necessarily see where the layer 2 stuff was posted, but that I understand. Like this early in the game, why would we be talking about that? So I get it. It's one of those things in crypto, I think, and we do it with Richard Hart. I'm sure people do it with Maria. But it's like you appeal to authority, or in this case, appeal to like intellect. You know what I mean? And our friend Wall to Wall, who was spewing his normal negativity earlier, was mocking some Richard Hart talking points. I get that. Like, I get when you hear people parrot the same thing, whether it be from a Richard or Maria or whoever it is. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, sometimes you just want to feel like that. But yeah, keep in mind, like, there are going to be lemmings with anybody who is an intellect and has a large following. There will be lemmings that just parrot stuff and there's no real brain in there. You know what I mean? Right, and that's probably where Wall to Wall comes from, and like some of the other people that get turned off. I understand that. But Richard Hart's a pretty goddamn smart guy still. Yeah, I fully believe that, and it's why I'm so heavily invested in this ecosystem. And I don't know enough about Maria yet, but I mean, he seems like a pretty goddamn smart guy, enough that I would like to see where things are going. So
sure.
Without you can't be brainless either, though. You can't just be like, oh, he says this, I'm gonna do this. I mean, right. Think about the people out there that are like out touting Jack Levin, like saying like the first principles and blah, 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 I imagine people still spewing that stuff with everything that's gone on. So yeah.
Well, anyway. It's one thing to preach first principles and then turn around and do the opposite. I know there were
Right.
some people that were VCs that were contacted to purchase or to get into a 11 thing, and that's not first principles at all. So he kind
Right.
of talks one way and then talks out of one side of his mouth and then talks out the other side and does something completely different.
Yeah. Well, once I think the target might be 100 tokens, and once we get there, his grand mission will be complete. So,
Maybe so.
um, moving on, let's finish off with this. I think this is the most interesting other topic, and I know that people get annoyed with this man, and I understand why. But Bob Loukas, he of the Bitcoin 4-year cycles, he talks a lot about 4-year cycles with Bitcoin, and I always make this. I always proceed in my comments about Bob Loukas with this. Yes, I understand he's trolled Hex in the past and stuff like that. I don't think he really gives a shit about it. It's just engagement farming and stuff like that. What I do, and what I would encourage anybody else to do, is take the good from the people. Everybody has some good stuff and some bad stuff. Just take the good stuff from everybody you can, or for lack of a better term, like the stuff that at least resonates with you. Okay. Bob Loukas is just a long-term swing trader that I do believe understands the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, and I take that from him. I don't take from him, shitting on Richard Hart and shitting on Hex. I don't think he understands the greater scope of crypto, and that's fine. But I do think, as far as his charting and this stuff, I think is good. So he put out a new 45-minute video about the 4-year cycle, and I was really intrigued to watch this one because with all the talk that we've had recently, Ewok, of is this a left translated cycle? Bitcoin way higher than we've ever thought it would be by now. Blah 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 blah. He does these videos, Bob Loukas, bi-monthly or monthly. And at this point believes there's about a 60% chance of the left translated cycle scenario, where basically what would happen is, okay, we've saw this kind of big rise for Bitcoin already in 2024, and that would then lead to maybe later into the fall, another, he believes, much higher top, but early, in this year, not deep and not spring or fall of 2025, which would be a normal cycle that we're all accustomed to. That would be the normal lineup, is that we see a new Bitcoin all-time high, mid to late 2025, or I should say the top of the bull market. He's noted how strong the market is now with major players entering and the ETF, which, hey, even Richard Hart has talked a lot about too. And Richard now betting pretty much on an Ethereum ETF. But Loukas says the left translated cycle would call for a huge blow off later this year, and then things get pretty brutal starting mid to late 2025. So basically front running by, give or take 6-8 months or something like that from what a normal cycle would be. Because in the normal cycle, we would be thinking, if it was anything like last time, late 2021, November is when we had the new Bitcoin all-time high, and alts ran higher than they ever had. And then, a month later, actually, really, it was November, and then December things started to pull back, and then it got really brutal to start 2022. So yeah, you could see we'd have a big all-time high later this year, start crashing sometime in 25. And I kind of think it's interesting that Loukas only put a 60% chance on Bitcoin smashing because on the left translated cycle, I should say, because Bitcoin has smashed expectations so much so far this year. So to me, he's pretty much still 50-50, even with this bullish action. So I appreciate that, footsteps. But yeah, what do you make of that, Ewok? Yeah, just the chances of the left translated cycle. I mean, I again, it's that appeal to authority thing, and I'm not going to say like, hey, Bob Loukas said this. This is what I got to do now. He's throwing a dart, but he's
Sure.
he basically said, 50-50 left translated, or so
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
50-50.
what's he really?
So he's not putting anything on the line by saying it.
Not necessarily, but that's why that last interesting point I made was like, I am surprised he just said 60% chance when it's been so juicy so far. So to me, that actually, I think, means he still feels fairly likely about the regular cycle because it's looked so good so far. So.
Well, yeah, it looks good. But again, it's completely different this time. It's got we've got the ETF, we've got a lot of big people buying. There's a lot of big people selling though too. I mean, you got BlackRock now invested heavily, but you've got MicroStrategy. Did you see they're buying Ethereum? the other
I
day.
didn't see that. No, I did not see
So
that.
yeah, they're starting to buy Ethereum. So again, I think it's going to be a regular cycle until it's not a regular cycle. We've got to see something that leads us different. And to me, other than seeing an early top, which I think was all caused by the ETF, that's the only thing that's really changed. Um,
Mhm.
I don't see it. I just don't see the left translated cycle happening. I see it playing out as normal into 2025. Until we don't see it, then we have like, oh, okay, well, now it could be different. I think a lot of people say this stuff just to say, well, I was right. I called it. But they don't really have anything to go on. I mean,
Right.
there's it's just like you said, it's like throwing a dart and maybe it hits. Yeah, we got 50% chance of it. Well, we don't really have 50% chance. It's probably more like 80-20, because we've never seen it before, and until it changes, it's going to stay the same. So that's just my opinion. Like I said, I think a lot of these guys say a lot of things for just the chance that it
Don't
does
criticize
happen.
Bob Lucas.
I don't
Don't
like him.
criticize. I know
I'll
you
flat
don't.
out say it. I don't like them. I'm not a fan of people that do that stuff for the engagement bait.
Yeah,
And
I get it,
hey,
but
like
you
I
got to
understand, I
be able.
respect him. I respect his opinions. I respect his economic whatever, his his education in the whole atmosphere here. But
I
I
think he
just
can read cycles. I mean, I do
yeah,
think
sure.
he can do that, and I respect his ability to do that. But I
Sure.
don't know that I would share a beverage with the guy.
Well, yeah,
So
I have nothing in common with them. I don't really care for, like I said, anybody that pulls the engagement bait, I'm not a fan of.
yeah,
And
I understand. It does lead you to be a little bit skeptical of them
yeah,
when they
very
do
much
that. It's
so.
like, what are you doing?
What
You know?
else are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It just you do one shady thing, and it casts a lot of doubt in my mind. So yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, I'm not a fan of the guy. I don't agree with the left translated thing, and that's my take. So
Good comment here from John J UK. Yeah, we need to get a league table. I'll tell you right now, John J, I would currently be Liverpool, is all I'm gonna say. Last I checked, they're leading the EPL, I believe. So, and how about that? If you are in the UK, which I imagine you are, I would like your thoughts on the EPL right now. Because I just saw the other day, I looked at the table the other day, and man, Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal all very tight. And usually Arsenal's kind of a joke, but it's interesting they're doing so well this year. But yeah, all things said, I mean, like I will take what Bobby Lucas can offer and take the good stuff, but I am with you that like, hey, the left translated has never happened before, and the left translated starting to become like a lot of people are starting to expect it now, like because Bitcoin just did this, which has been amazing. You know, I mean, it's been crazy that Bitcoin's been able to do this. Many people are getting baited into that now.
yep,
So
all the
if there
more
was
reason it's not going to.
yeah, if there were ever a time where you would start to like oh yeah, everybody's kind of coalescing on this idea, um, it'd be great. And we're seeing it right now. If this pullback we're seeing right now continues, Bitcoin at 65K right now, that's good. This is when we
Mhm.
want to see this correction right now.
Yep.
We want to see, we want to see it come down further, and ideally ETH and alt start to come up, bring Bitcoin down into the 50Ks, probably even into the high 40Ks again or something like that, and let's get back on a normal pace.
Yep.
I think that's what we really would want. So. I thought it was good food for thought anyway to kind of go over what he saw. But yeah, I mean, the more people that are looking at left translated, the less likely it will be. I agree with you there. So there you go,
He's
Liverpool
a
supporter. Yeah,
Liverpool supporter there for you.
as a guy in the States, this is going to sound really stupid, but I always liked Leicester City, and I know they've been relegated now. But I just thought their kits were cool. I liked the King Power on their blue jerseys. I thought that was cool. Hex Girl, the recent BTC downturn is more like a regular 4-year cycle. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if this pullback continues right now, it got frothy just too quick. So was it the ETF? That's what a lot of people are pointing to, Richard Hart included. So yeah. What do we got from DJ Moonboy?
Well, he said this earlier, but he says, I feel like it's an information cycle. Everyone's learned how to read and report on the blockchain, which is good. I, I like the fact that people are getting knowledgeable and learning and taking the time and the energy to read blockchain, to do a little bit of research and see who's doing what. I like that.
Mhm.
It's better than just a bunch of people on Robinhood investing and thinking that they're going to get rich. No, I'm serious. It's good.
Yeah. No.
It's good to build that base. So, each cycle when people get washed out, as long as that base can get a little bit bigger, eventually, things are going to be more normal. You're going to see less huge drawbacks, and we're already seeing it with the bigger coins. You started with Bitcoin. It started at a 95% drawback. Then the next cycle it was 80 or 90%, and then 85, and now down to 80% drawback. So each time each cycle happens, you're going to get a less of a pullback, more normal of a cycle. And I think that I think that's good. It just shows the growth.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And John Jay, continuing on this point, says, "What's your thoughts on BTC running up at the end of the year and everyone shouts left translated, then it shoots up again in 25? Surely all the ETF interest in Mr. Fink's comments will bring money in." I mean, I think if so he's saying if BTC runs up at the end of the year and everyone shouts, I mean, I don't know if they will or not. I mean, I think it would have to. I think we would have to see like crazy run up at the end of the year. And I'm not sure exactly what you mean there, but I think if we get to like obvious, clear, like not just like, oh, triple top like we saw here so far at about 73K. If we saw like 110 or even 100 BTC, that's when it would be like, okay, this may be left translated, because that's kind of too early for that.
It's too early, and I think
Yeah,
I think we could possibly see another double top like we saw last cycle.
right.
Because now that's a thing, right? So you
Mhm.
kind of either expect it until it doesn't happen again. And that was between what, April and November. So there
Right.
was, quite a 6 months in there that, to make that double top. It didn't last long, but, you could at least expect it.
Yeah, I see what he's saying. Just enough for folks to think it's left translated, and
Sure.
then we get another blowout in 25. I mean, maybe. I think if we get to like a number like 100 this year, I would be confident that that is actually a left translated cycle, because that would be so bullish so soon, that I would want to be taking profits, assuming we ever move. All coins really move hard. That's what I would want to be doing a little bit at that time, if we were that good that early. Anyway, I'm not saying like everything. I'm just saying I would be interested to see where we're at.
So if you're saying if it
But
hits 100K by the end of 2024, you're calling left translated cycle.
yeah, I would say if we got
Really?
that high, and I
We're
will
almost
say
there.
this, not really. That's 30,000 away
70?
still.
Yeah, well,
Not really. I mean, here's what I would say. I'll just say this. I don't think that scenario is going to happen. Like, I think that's too in between. I think we're either going to get whatever you want to call it, quadruple top or something like that, or like get back into the 70s towards the end of this year, continue on a normal cycle, or we're going to go to like 140 this year, or like way higher than 100K. I don't think it'll just be 100K. That would really be confusing, I think. That
well,
number, but
you realize though that it went from 40K, where was it? Back here, January. So from January to March, 2 months, it made 30,000. It only
mhm.
took 2 months. So,
Okay.
another 30,000 in by the end of the year, which you know, we've got 8 months left. I don't know. I just I could see it hitting 100,000 without being a left translated cycle.
I mean, I guess maybe 100. That's not a number that I would think is likely. I think it would either be less than that as we get ready to really blow off in 25, or it would be a bigger blow off. That's just kind of too in the middle for me. I guess I didn't really consider that number, I guess. But anyway, lot of scenarios. The main thing is just to be prepared for either one. Like, just be prepared for what may be happening here. And, first off, we have to actually move up ever.
Sure.
So right now, all we need to, all we're doing is still DCAing. So, I mean, that's really all we can worry about right now. So, I think it's going to wrap things up. This has been a good show.
I like this better.
Yeah, I'll take a super cycle. That would be nice for sure. Or just a normal one. Just a normal right translated cycle and see where things go with these ETFs and stuff like that. But for now, as far as talking about the PulseChain ecosystem here, obviously still DCA, just is what it is. It's at the point where I think everybody would be helped by, you can say it till you're blue in the face, but zooming out, looking at time, like it is still April of 24. Like we've seen a move up. I'd like to be even better than where we are right now. We're not. So, we've really always been aiming for deep into 2025. So just keep at it. If you want to capitulate, you can certainly do that too. I mean, I've noticed on Twitter, I will say this, is dabbling back in it a little bit this week. The negativity, it's starting to seem like people have gotten washed out, or at least there's some silence now. Last week, there was massive anger, massive depression, massive drama. Now it might just be me ignoring it, but I'm just not seeing as much. I think some people went away,
I'm seeing that too, and I was actually gonna comment on that if you asked me if I had any last thoughts. And
go ahead.
I've noticed that too, and I don't know if it's because I've muted the people that are most negative, and maybe they're still out there. I'm just not seeing it. But if you guys are experiencing that at all, don't be afraid to mute people. If you see somebody that every post they make is negative or hate on this or hate on that, or tell somebody they're doing something the wrong way, just mute them for a little while. It definitely helps your own psyche. It helps you believe and get around the people that do believe in this long term, which we both do a lot. I don't say much on X anymore or Twitter. I just don't, because you're either met with one of those people where you thought was a friend, who has turned negative, or it just starts an argument where people just like to get on there and argue with you. I kind of just stopped posting. There's not a whole lot to say right now. It's just one of those times. But yeah, I mean, if it's definitely affecting you, don't be afraid to mute people. You don't have to block them. You don't have to unfollow or anything like that. Just mute them and check back in 4 months. I bet things are a little bit different, and people are in a much better mood. So just keep it real. That's all, and handle the hard situations better. That's all you can really do.
You know what I noticed too, and I don't post on Twitter either, because it's just not. I don't feel that I can convey anything I truly mean on a platform like that. It's just words. People get offended easily and act ways in which they wouldn't if you were in public or anything. But something that's funny is you can tell these people kind of go on a period, for lack of a better word. They go through their little cycle, and you will know who I'm talking about right now. I'm not going to say their name, but he will, for 2 weeks, do this little I'll just say something that was said recently, something like, I'm done with Richard Hart now. I'm moving on, and I've moved past him now. And it's, just a lot of me, how my angle on it. It's all about me, and the person I'm talking about, look, no disrespect. I invest in the stuff that he helps creates, and more power to him. At the end of the day, I think he's net positive. But these people just, and then all of a sudden it's one day the slate's wiped clean, and hey, all the best for PulseChain. We're going to be moving up. It's just these people just have to go on the rag for a couple of weeks. That's just,
I hear you,
how it is. I don't know. There are cycles in human behavior too, I guess. So.
Sure, there are. And I hope nobody fell for any April Fools yesterday, believing anything. That was one of the things I was like, everything I read, I didn't believe yesterday.
They were all so bad. Honestly, people ruined it. The minute I woke up, I saw like one preposterous tweet, and then I saw another one, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's April Fool's Day. I'm not taking this seriously.
Well, when
best one of the day.
Yeah, Katie said she was getting out. She was done. I'm selling all my crypto. I'm done.
She was the one. That was too obvious. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
No. The best one I saw of the day, if anybody's familiar with the Patrick Bet David podcast, which I listen to every now and then, they had a serious press release that they hired Don Lemon after and congratulated him on his recent stellar interview with Elon Musk and stuff. And I bought it actually because Bet David just hired Chris Cuomo recently. And I was like, wow, I thought maybe they were just trying to like make a splash. Like, oh, well, he says he likes to talk to people of differing opinion. Maybe they really did it. He totally got me. So, yeah, good stuff. So,
yeah.
All right.
Cool.
I think that'll wrap it up. Thank you, everybody. DJ and Boonboy, Patrick's, Astros, and stuff. Hex Girl, Philly, KD, John J, Cody, Polly, Farley, Familiar Fives. Some new names here tonight as well. So Footsteps. I appreciate all you guys. We'll be back here next Tuesday night.
Even Wall to Wall TV. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, especially Wall to Wall TV. You remind us, of all perspectives that are out there. So we appreciate it, Wall to Wall TV. We'll be back next Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Creed of Crypto podcast. See you guys.
Did it.